Yo, yo, this is such a good scene for soul leveling. Like, dedicating pretty much an entire episode for this fight. Honestly, I needed it. I needed it. Especially because it's like last week's episode was a lot of exposition and a lot of build up for this episode. And my oh my, did they freaking deliver? Like they straight up they delivered a quality episode of solo leveling, and there's a lot of character development and characterization even on display with this episode. And I think the way it is giving these details to Jinwo, it's just doing it in such a better way, in my personal opinion, than the webcomic did. And I've been kind of singing the praises of solo leveling for weeks now. Like, I've been talking about the anime and just how, in general, the anime really is just so much better than the webcomic. I'm not talking about the light novel, obviously. Just in terms of, like, the added anime original content to the way, obviously, the animation looks. I mean, that's a big detail with the music and the voice acting as well. It is just, it's so good, man. Now, I want to get into a few things that this episode did, and I think that it is very important to talk about, because for one, Soul Leveling did cut some content this week, and I do think that it's fair I mention it, since obviously I was quick to praise, with the added content of anime original content. I should also mention when something is technically cut. And in this case, this episode cut a certain sequence at the end of the episode where basically Jinwo was supposed to drag an individual into the boss room and have them pretty much fight it and then die, and then he proceeds to fight the boss. Basically just to showcase, like, yeah, I don't care about your life, so to speak. There's a lot more to it than that, but that obviously was completely cut with this episode. It was supposed to happen, but it didn't, because obviously the ending of the episode skips past the whole boss. We don't get to see it, so it pretty much showcases that, yeah, they cut a scene. Now, why would they do this? Well, it goes along with the overarching theme of what this episode and the previous episodes have kind of been about with Jinwo's character, and I think that it's very important to really discuss why it was cut. So, this episode obviously wanted to highlight that the stronger our main character gets, the more detached and disconnected he gets from everyone else. And I think that this is a very fascinating take. It reminds me a lot of, like, let's say, One Punch Man. It's a conversation that is brought up if anyone wants to discuss One Punch Man's story of Saitama, that Saitama as a character is incredibly powerful. All it takes is, like, someone not to ground him in reality. Like, if he loses anything that grounds him in reality, he'll automatically become something that is a monster, where he just doesn't look at humans the exact same way. Obviously, One Punch Man does have a serious story with some comedy elements, and you can look past all the serious stuff as well, but it kind of tells a very similar thing, is that Saitama could easily become detached from everybody because of how strong he is. So when you take a hard look at, like, for instance, Jinwo in this episode, he's in a very similar circumstance. For instance, he's getting stronger and stronger, and the stronger he gets as a hunter, the more bosses he kills, and the more people he's forced to take down because the system tells him to, the more he loses his humanity. What made him human to begin with and grounded in reality is just slipping away from him, which makes perfect sense. As an individual, if you're someone that, is just gaining more and more power, and as you continue gaining power and you're able to do things that are just effortlessly, like nothing, eventually you're just gonna slowly not, like, be able to think in the same wavelength as probably everyone else, because you're just so overwhelmingly powerful. And it's gonna happen. It's gonna desensitize you and everything. This is just common human nature, honestly, that works with the psyche. So Jinwo as a character, he's, actually going through that. He even mentions it. It's like he feels like he's just being slowly ripped apart. And I love the characters, like the support characters, analyzing Jinwo and talking about that in this episode, saying, like, oh wow, thanks to him being in a lot of life or death situations, with the first episode and second episode, to, what's happened as of late in these past few episodes, it's caused him to just slowly be forced into a mental breakdown, so to speak, to where he just shuts off emotions. He just flips a kill switch, so to speak, and he's able to, get rid of people if he needs to get rid of them. Now, one other thing I do want to talk about as well is that he talks about how he can no longer be angry. Like, when he's in the middle of this fight and he's trying to take down this assassin, he mentions he loses something else. He's no longer even upset. And I think what this represents is that if we go back, like, to episode 6, we saw it to where he took his first life. Like, he was killing humans. And he was very upset, but it was survival of the fittest, and he kind of, tried to justify his actions because the system forced him to. And the world is a cruel game, and he just had to do that for his very survival. That's how he viewed the entire situation. He was angry of what he had to do and disgusted. So we fast forward to this, he basically mentions that he's not even angry anymore, and it's just he has nothing within him. It just showcases this very dark, cold-sided nature to his character that, he's just able to kill people now without really caring too much about it, because if the system tells him to kill someone, he's gonna do it, because he doesn't want to die. And he's starting to look at people that is being viewed as, like, let's say a quest, as potentially just EXP or items. That's another way to look at it. So let's talk about that for a second. One of the big themes that this episode tried to showcase with the assassin that was fighting Jim-Wo in this episode is that, he enjoys fighting people a lot more than monsters, but the prisoners, they basically view goblins and stuff the exact same way as humans. They're the exact same, they would kill them the exact same way, etc. Well, the point of the matter is that, they did this because they just don't care. They're psychopaths. And Jim-Wo, he's starting to look at individuals, at least people he's hunting down now, as more or less just a quest. It's like when you play a video game. A really good example here. Let's say you play any form of RPG, and it gives you a fetch quest, like kill 9 boars, okay? When you kill those 9 boars, do you think anything about it? It's like, oh, that's just the 9 boars I gotta kill to be able to get an item and progress, and then the next quest says, like, kill 6 bandits. Human bandits at that. And obviously, from the perspective, if you were actually in that character's shoes you were playing, it's kind of messed up. You're killing 6 people, okay? But obviously, you don't think too deep about it because it's game logic. And in this case, Jim-Wo's very motive, or his mindset, is slowly morphing into that viewpoint that it's just game logic. Like, it just furthers his growth. That's literally what it is. And it kind of all ties back into solo leveling as well. Just really nice. I love the overarching theme of this episode and how it ties in with the previous episodes as well. I feel like it's being presented in such a better way than, the actual webcomic, as I said. Now, getting back into the content that was cut. Obviously, as I said, they cut the sequence at the end of the episode. And why this ties all into everything I talked about is because, if they showed this scene of Jim-Wo just throwing someone to a boss to let them die, it feels like it's already a step way too far too quickly, and the series is trying to slowly build him up into that, like, edginess, that edgelord nature, to where it's just like he loses it all. It's not wanting to just go over the deep end automatically, it's doing a gradual incline, trying to build him up. And I think that's a really good way to handle it, especially in the anime. So, it makes a lot of sense why they would cut, like, a scene like that. But, anyways, with all that being said, absolutely fantastic episode of solo leveling. I think at the very least what we can gather from this episode as well in terms of, like, level of strength that Jim-Wo is at now, he is a high B rank level fighter, maybe a little slightly above mid rank if we're talking lowballing him, because he took down a B rank fighter in this episode. He talks about how his speed stat was the exact same and all that. The only reason why Jim-Wo was able to win is because he had a bunch of broken abilities, but also he could revive and all with full recovery, so it made it to where he was able to overcome his opponent. But if he didn't have those certain tools to help him, like, to be able to recover his strength and stuff, he probably would have lost in this episode. So once again, I'm gonna, put him around mid-B tier, or slightly above average of B tier, but he's definitely not A rank, because what he literally said in this episode towards the end is that the guy that was, coming in to investigate the situation of, this assassin dying was an A rank, and Jim-Wo said that he would probably get annihilated by him. So he's definitely nowhere near A rank at the very least at the moment, and he is definitely not S rank, but it's nice to have confirmation kind of where he falls in line with his strength, so he can't just get away with doing a lot of things. He still has to be very secretive about what he's doing. But I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content and you want more of my content in your subscription feed, then do subscribe, leave a like as well, and with that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.